Alright, looks like they're both ready.
Okay, so there is a considerable speed change now. Jake looks like he's going for the standard stairs build. As far as chains go, John looks like he could get off a 3 chain. Jake looks like he get off a 2, considering that he gets blues, but now everything's covered up because John attacked first. Even with ghosting those pieces on top, I don't think Jake can survive that much damage.
Yeah, round 1 goes to John.
So John's got a stairs build, but his transition is covered up a lot. Now if Jake decides to attack now, even with one Puyo in the wrong spot, his transition can get covered up a lot. John still needs a lot of pieces to set up his chain. He covered up his transition a good amount of times. Well, Jake doesn't have as much chaining potential as John, you know, looking at the field and seeing that John is doing a transition. I don't know, I just feel like Jake attacking quicker is inhibiting John by a lot.
Yeah, John had the potential to set up a 3 chain with the yellow and green in column 5, but then he covered up his red, which could have been the trigger. That being said, he does have a couple follow-ups on the other side, so he was still able to perform some sort of dig and harassment.
Also, there was a transition on column 5, but it didn't work out since John performed a counterattack.
Yeah, we're definitely getting some bigger attacks and defenses this round. We've sent some 3 chains both ways, and both players have been managing to defend at least somewhat against the harassments.
I think Jake is just going to go for continuous pokes. Well, he could conserve the damage. It doesn't... I think Jake should have conserved the damage because now John is going for all these follow-ups due to how much resources he has on his board. This is going to be a 3 chain. Jake doesn't have anywhere near that kind of damage on the board, so I think this is going to be another game for John.
Yeah, it seems that way. Yep, there it is. Game 1 goes to John. Right, jumping right into the second game.
So, set 2. So, Jake's... Actually, this looks like a Hellfire setup rather than a stairs build. And meanwhile, John's got a 2 chain? No, he didn't set it off.
He's got a 4 actually, and John is... Oh no, it turned into a power 2.
Yeah, I was thinking he was going to set off on the right, but didn't seem like the case.
Yeah, so big advantage for Jake now. Let's see if he can build up one more decisive chain to lock John out of the match.
I mean, that power 2 looks pretty terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Ooh, that almost insta-killed.
Still a little space for John to try digging, but it's going to be a very uphill battle for him. Jake just needs to get some greens to set off a 3 chain, but oh, now he's starting to get a couple. He has to build kind of up for it, and if a garbage ends up blocking it, which it does not look like it did, so I expect to see a 3 chain from Jake pretty soon.
There are a lot of points where Jake could have sent off damage. For example, those greens right there. I mean, he finally did a 2 chain, but now looking at the massive power 4 that Jake has, there's pretty much no coming back from that. Okay, so John is doing another build in the center. Doesn't look like any palpable damage yet. Meanwhile, Jake is doing stairs? Question mark?
Yeah, it looks like Jake's going for stairs. He got a purple in that way. I think he was originally going to go right to left and then decided to go the other way. So he might still
He's
try
going both ways now, looking at it.
Yeah.
Oh, he fixed it up though.
Definitely...
This is a 4-chain.
That's a power 4. That Jake's 3 is not going to be nearly enough to defend against that. So now it's Jake on the back foot this round.
As long as John messes up, Jake should be able to reclaim this round because he's getting a lot of power ones in.
Yeah, but here comes a decent chain from John, so I feel like that's going to seal Jake out mostly.
There's still a little bit of wiggle room for Jake. But now John has trigger ready. Jake's 1-chain didn't block it off, so that's going to be even more damage.
Jake had the 2-chain to defend mostly, so he's definitely keeping himself alive and slowly working his way down.
John's pacing is a little bit faster now that he's trying to seal off Jake, but Jake's doing a very good job of mitigating the damage, and if he gets those blues in time, he'll be able to possibly steal John off.
Oh, that power 2 is so good.
Those greens in time, which means that Jake does take this round.
Yeah. And the game, so now we're 1-1, final game in this match.
Looking at Jake's side, this could either be a Hellfire or a Stair build, as it usually goes each round. But John can set off this chain from multiple points. If he sets off the blues on the left, it can be a 3-chain. If he sets off the reds on the right, it can also be a 3-chain. So here's a 3-chain. And Jake took a whole lot of damage, but depending on how he builds, he can totally dig this out. It looks like he's gonna go for reclaiming the reds in column 4. Well, now he has access to it. As far as Jake's board, he can do something with the greens on the left to do a 2-chain, as he's doing now. Jake's trigger, which is the greens, are covered up. And now that John has a follow-up, this isn't going to be going too well. Well, it's going a little better now that he has access to his trigger. Yeah, John has a 3-chain ready. But Jake has a power 3 ready, so that's gonna hurt.
Yeah, it looks like John does not have much space left to work with, whereas Jake is trying to reform some semblance of a stairs chain. John's actually sending a few harassments off, so he's still holding his own.
True. I feel like John's in that state where like he has a lot of resources that doesn't mean anything yet, but if he gets those reds off with a blue, it could mean something. I don't know, with the 3-chain,
there's a power 2. Didn't send too much over to Jake, but a little bit of harassment. I feel like this round might end up being decided by margin time. There's been a lot of back and forth and not too much decisive chaining yet.
Margin time looks like it's kicking in a little bit. Just a little bit though. This is power 2. Technically it's power 2.
Yeah, no, margin time's definitely kicked in to some extent now. So both players need to be ready for quick harassments, which are way stronger than quick harassments.
Oh, that was a 2-chain that shouldn't have done that much damage. So margin time is definitely here. And at this point, it's a question of can both players keep up with each other.
Yeah, John hesitated on that blue-red. I think he wanted to put in column 4 and then decided to move it over. And then he didn't have anything to defend against Jake's chain, and that sealed it. That round goes to Jake.
Let's see if John can take this back. Okay, so they've got pretty good pieces as far as the stairs build. Jake seems to be taking the initiative on that one. John looks like he's going for something pretty powerful. Jake's already setting off his chain. John's
But
got
John has the
a
4.
4.
Yeah, good counter by John, sending over a couple lines back to Jake. Now, John definitely has the upper hand on resources, decides to send a follow-up 2-chain to seal Jake out just a little more. That being said, I don't think it's hurting Jake too much yet. Jake definitely had some dig opportunities if he placed the purples in column 3 and left the blues open.
I think it could have been a 3-chain. Well, he's got... Well, that could have been a 3-chain, but that's a power too.
Yeah, that's still pretty good. Another 3+ line sent to John. Now he has basically no space to work with. Yeah, and he can't flip it over because there's a ghost piece in column 4.
John had a lot of resources to win. However, I feel as if his stalling ended up killing him in the end. If he had been more decisive about where he wanted to do damage, he could have killed Jake a lot easier.
Yeah. So, that match goes to Jake, and he will advance in the bracket.